Hello friends, this is us, as seen on national television.
Me, playing Monster in VHS,
Alright, so in an alternate universe where
Ray Parker Jr. Here we go with Ghostbusters.
Ghost over here!
me feel good.
Alright, so this video topic is as much a surprise to me as it probably is to you guys. I don't think I mentioned anywhere that I had any interest in this game, and that's because I didn't. Up until recently, Midnight Ghost Hunt super flew under my radar. Apparently the game has been in development since as early as 2019. The only reason I even discovered this game's existence was literally on a whim. I clicked onto its Steam page, glanced over it quickly, thought it was cool, noticed that you could sign up for a beta, and instinctively opted in. And here we are. Probably one of the better compulsory decisions I've made in recent memory because I have been having an absolute blast with Midnight Ghost Hunt. Which is insane considering that this game is just prop hunt. For those unfamiliar with the concept, Prop Hunt is one of the many games that emerged from the long-venerated line of source engine mods and game modes. Prop Hunt was so popular that it would evolve from its humble beginnings and would proliferate unrestricted among other source games before eventually birthing its own genre. Beginning with Counter-Strike's source before going on to Gary's mod in TF2, and then so on and so forth. It's effectively hide and seek. You have a team of props, and you have a team of seekers. As props, your job is to blend in seamlessly with the environment and evade the seekers until the round ends.
Oh, I know how this bastard is hiding.
As seekers, you have to locate and eliminate all of the fake props with the weaponry provided. Of course, there's a lot more nuance involved and added since the days of 2012, but I think you got the gist of it for now. So what is Midnight Ghost Hunt? Developed by Vaulted Sky Games, Midnight Ghost Hunt is a team-based paranormal-themed prop hunt game structured in a 4v4 format. You and 7 other players take on the role of either the ghost hunters or the ghosts as you engage in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse in various haunted settings. Unlike the original iterations of Prop Hunt, in this game both teams have an expanded kit based around the props and tracking them down. Popular items from horror science fiction make their appearance alongside familiar ghastly tropes for players to utilize in comically spooky fun.
I've got a big surprise for you.
Welcome to the hunt, recruit.
As the hunters, you'll be using a combination of gadgets and gizmos designed to unearth and exorcise your ethereal enemies. As ghosts, you'll need to use your powers of the paranormal and possess props in order to evade or potentially incapacitate the hunters. Hunters have access to a wide variety of equipment that harnesses tenuously understood sciences which haven't been peer-reviewed by any form of scientific authority. The hunter's arsenal can be broken down into weapons, gadgets, and perks. Your choice of weaponry to dispatch ghosts with is incredibly varied. Though every weapon results in the same end goal, they all have interesting niches that they fill. Some weapons are really effective against ghosts in their base form, but do minimal damage to possessed props. The opposite is also true. A trusty sledgehammer will make quick work of any prop, but lacks the supernatural strength required to pacify a poltergeist. Some weapons work better in tandem with others. Some are designed to afflict ghosts with status effects, limiting their ability to evade or fight back. Gadgets are the utility in any good hunter's toolkit. Like their dedicated offensive counterparts, they are varied in what they can do to aid in your hunt. You've got the usual gamut from first aid to explosives and everything in between. Arguably the most important item category in the hunter's toolkit resides here: the tracking devices. With these, you'll be able to smoke out any ghost hiding somewhere in the map. The radar is omnidirectional and proximity-based. The closer you are to a ghost generating ectoplasm, the stronger the reading. More on ectoplasm later. The Pathfinder can track a ghost's movement through their ghastly footsteps. However, it is incapable of determining the location of a ghost if they never move from their hiding spot. The spectrogram operates exactly as it does in Phasmophobia, which may or may not be true, because I have no idea how to operate the fucking thing in either game. Give me a sign.
When's Marvel?
Perks further adjust the utility of hunters by altering the characteristics of the hunter themselves. Compared to everything else in a ghost hunter's arsenal, you've probably already experienced these perks before. Some of them feel very much lifted from other games, name and all. Which is honestly fine, dare I say necessary even, to incorporate something that most people will be familiar with, so as to ground them when you're presenting them with all of these concepts and gameplay avenues that they probably don't have a lot of experience in.
Hello there, little ghost.
Ghosts, by comparison, rely on their capacity to harness the supernatural in order to elude their would-be exorcists. A ghost's toolkit requires a little more forethought in comparison to the hunters. Their powers are separated into abilities, haunts, and perks. The powers of a ghost in their unsheltered form are simple yet important. A ghost can swipe at an enemy for a decent amount of damage, and they can possess a prop from a distance. Once inside a prop, your abilities expand greatly. You can charge up your spiritual energy while inhabiting a prop, allowing you to fling yourself across the map to either flee from an enemy, or stun an enemy for a significant amount of damage upon connection. You can transfer to another prop without having to return to your ghost form. You can even manipulate the prop itself in dastardly ways, depending on what prop you possess. Abilities are defined as the powers you can use in your semi-corporeal form. Unlike the direct approach used by the hunters, your toolkit is primarily designed to divert, disrupt, or evade the enemy team. You have abilities that supplement your already exceptional movement, making it possible to escape from an entire enemy team when used decisively. You have powers that manifest as traps, which can delay hunters, giving you an opportunity to think about your next move, or take a careless hunter out of the game, if only for a moment. You even have evocations that emulate telltale signs of paranormal manifestations to throw hunters off of your trail. I myself am partial to miasma, and haunts are a separate category of powers that only come into play if your physical form was destroyed. In the event that you do get caught out during the course of a match, you aren't out of the fight. Haunts give you access to several afflictions that can significantly hamstring a ghost hunter's efforts in locating your allies. You have haunts that mess with the sensitive electronics the hunters use to track paranormal activity, leading them on wild goose chases. You can physically displace a hunter with your haunts. This works exceptionally well on ledges and ladders. Even the most basic haunt, Chill, can deter a hunter for seconds that they absolutely cannot spare. Perks for ghosts are a little more exotic in comparison to the hunters, but they function relatively the same. Once you decipher the esotericism behind the perks, all they really do is just emphasize one aspect of your qualities. Like with the hunter perks, you've probably seen some iteration of this concept before in a different game. Now, where ghosts differ greatly to their scientific counterparts is when the clock strikes midnight. Any ghost is still present once the timer is up, then the midnight hunt begins. Once the clock strikes 12, all destroyed ghosts are immediately revived, and then every ghost is empowered to a dangerous degree. Powers that were originally used to evade capture can now be used to engage in combat. Abilities that were originally disruptive are now incredibly deadly.
One down. That's two.
Abilities used to hide can now be used to ambush. In the truest sense of the word, the hunters have now become the hunted. With your arsenal and abilities now explained, it's time to get into the structure of the gameplay itself. A game of Midnight Ghost Hunt is normally set up so that 2 rounds are played on one map. Each team gets an opportunity to play as both ghosts and hunters before a new map is chosen. Several iconic horror set pieces you'd normally find in the genre are the dictated battlegrounds for our ghosts and their pursuers. Late-night museums, abandoned graveyards, and haunted coves are but a sample of the various settings the ghosts haunt. There are obvious aesthetic and structural differences between all of the maps, but they all exhibit similarities built into the foundation of each stage. Every map has clearly defined locations revolving around a centralized area that makes it easy to compartmentalize your surroundings. Every stage has a place for ghosts and hunters to alter their loadout mid-game if they so desire. Each map has a lot of verticality that is utilized differently depending on the location. Theater has a lot of its verticality revolving around the focal point, the stage, while Mansion manifests its verticality in a more conventional manner by separating the map into 3 distinct floors. Finally, the most important point, every map is filled to the brim with items for players to interact with. In other words, to put it more succinctly, every map is perfect for a game of hide and seek.
Ghost sighted.
The start of every match opens with a setup phase for both teams to organize themselves and their loadout. In this phase, ghosts have an opportunity to analyze the lay of the land and decide where and how they're going to hide. Craftier ghosts and teams tend to set up ambushes of varying intensities, from light poking to all-in gambits. Some ghosts like to mark their territory and make navigating certain areas as inconvenient or as dangerous as possible. Observant spirits may take position in places that oversee a large portion of the map in order to call out locations via comms or through the game's robust adaptive ping system. It's never a bad call to just hide. Your primary objective is to stay alive after all. Hunters are given a similar opportunity to create a plan of attack and coordinate their loadouts with each other, but usually you just sit in awkward silence until you reach your destination.
So,
why do you... don't you talk, don't you have a chat to talk to or something? Why don't you talk to your chat,
all
man?
they do is flame me. All they do is flame me for being bad.
What do you mean? So how's the weather? What the...
Following the setup phase is the hunt phase. Both teams now have 5 minutes to accomplish their objectives. The hunters must locate and destroy all of the ghosts, and ghosts must elude the hunters for 5 minutes in order to initiate the midnight hunt. During the course of the hunt phase, ghosts will begin to generate ectoplasm that can be picked up by a hunter's tracking equipment. Ectoplasm accumulates when a ghost opts to stay completely still. The more ectoplasm a ghost has built up, the easier it is for them to be detected by a hunter. You can rid yourself of the ectoplasmic buildup simply by moving around. Even something as simple as pacing back and forth out of sight in your hiding spot, or taunting, is enough to throw hunters off of your trail. This minor thing I find really charming. It's a way for ghosts to extend their ability to remain hidden, and it gives hunters the opportunity to spot someone who is hidden away fairly well. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it also emulates the real-world trope of haunted objects moving randomly in response to something. And as you all know, I'm all about game design that transforms reality into clever game mechanics. Alternatively, the ghosts could attempt to take out all the hunters before midnight, but this does require some level of teamwork which is not always available during public matchmaking. But if you remain observant and patient, on occasion an opportunity to kill off a hunter will reveal itself. It's well within the realm of possibility that a ghost could remain undetected for the whole 5 minutes. But more often than not, someone will be found out. The maps are small enough and the tracking device is accurate enough that a ghost will most likely be discovered. And this is when we enter the third phase of the game, the chase. Once the hunter has discovered a ghost's whereabouts, it's up to the ghost to decide whether to flee or fight. Fleeing is almost always the better option because unless the other 3 hunters are busy doing something else entirely, you're inevitably going to have 4 hunters after you. The very same ping system that the ghosts can use against the humans also works for the hunters as well. So even the most tight-lipped team can call out a ghost's position consistently as long as they remember to continuously ping the ghost during a chase. Depending on the map and the individual skill and loadout of every player involved in the chase, it may be that the inevitable conclusion will result in a destroyed ghost. If that's the case, then so be it. Even in the most fatal of circumstances, a ghost can stall for time no matter what. If you can't hide, then flee. If you can't flee, then fight. If you can't fight, then die. But only do so slowly. If the hunters are able to find all of the ghosts before time runs out, then the match ends there with the hunters as the victor. In the event that they don't and time runs out, then the midnight hunt begins. With the roles now reversed, the outlook for the hunters is grim, but not hopeless. With power dynamic having shifted drastically, the hunters now have to choose how they're going to get out of the situation. Some groups will find a location to hold for a valiant last stand, staring literal death in the face. Some will come to the conclusion that they can't hope to win an honest fight and will run for as long as they can. Sinking into complete and utter despair, unable to run and unable to fight, some hunters can do little more than cower in a corner and pray that they remain undiscovered. The setup, the hunt, the chase, and midnight. These 4 phases constitute the basic gameplay loop of a single round in a match if played to completion. Within each phase lies the potential for an uncharacteristic amount of nuance and depth for a prop hunt game. This is one of the big hooks that kept me engaged with Midnight Ghost Hunt. The interactions the players have with their environment, their abilities, and with other players. Hunters have a straightforward toolkit, but they also have some fairly clever setups that ghosts could fall for if they aren't paying attention. But it's really the paranormal that got me interested in seeing just how deep this strategic rabbit hole goes. It's a whole new avenue of paranormal hijinks that I just had to try. Initially, I would opt for the safe play and got better at hiding and running. I'd hide in areas that are rarely searched. I learned how to efficiently prop hop. I'd think about my escape route and create several contingency plans in the event I was discovered. As I got better and better, I started experimenting with my powers, but I only ever did so in a way that leaned towards an evasive playstyle. It was effective, but it was boring and pedestrian and left me wanting more. And it wasn't until several games later that I witnessed other ghosts start incorporating tactics that I never even thought of. All things considered, the tactic itself was fairly mundane, but it was important because it was this revelation that helped me expand my thinking on playing as a ghost beyond running and hiding. The tactic in question was literally just preparing the space that I was hiding in. Back in them old days of prop hunt, after enough rounds on the same map, it would get easier and easier as a seeker to pick out discrepancies in your surroundings. But in Midnight Ghost Hunt, with your ghastly powers, you could prep the environment so that it looks unfamiliar to even the most observant of hunters. When the entire room is a mess, everything looks out of place, which means you fit in perfectly. It started with me prepping the room to hide in. Then I learned how to prep rooms for hunters to die in. I remember this moment so vividly. It was at school and there was a ghost that kept barricading the music room with large props before trapping them with Corruptor. No matter what you did to circumvent the trap, you'd be spending an extra 3 to 7 seconds for an area you're not even certain is sheltering a ghost. Those extra seconds quickly add up, and it gets even worse if you get injured. If no medkit is available, are you going to head back to the generator and spend precious seconds patching yourself up? Or are you going to press onward despite your injuries, opening yourself up to potential ambush? And who's to say that you aren't going to get ambushed at the generator? This uncovering of strategic depth culminated into this insane moment that happened on Mansion. It was a 4-stack of ghosts who've clearly been playing for a bit, and they turned the starting area into a fucking kill box! It was spiritual warfare! We were being assaulted from all sides by telekinetic powers. Constant pressure was being applied via poltergeist. They would haunt the doors, so if we were careless and strayed too near to one, we would get smacked in the face for like half our health. We discovered that they were hiding on the chandelier above us, but it was too little too late and we crumbled at midnight. This was the moment where I really felt like I was in a horror movie. I felt like I was Ash in Evil Dead 2 when the cabin was coming to life and mocking him relentlessly. So even after all the time I've been playing, I'm still discovering new ways to play both as a hunter and as a ghost. Which starts this cycle of going back and re-examining all of the powers and equipment available to me with a new mindset. And every time without fail I think of a new way to apply these powers during a session. Once a round has ended, players are awarded EXP and ghost shards based on their performance. Ghost shards are the in-game currency you accumulate over several matches. They're primarily used to unlock more of the hunter's arsenal or more of the ghost's powers. But once you have access to everything, you can invest some of that currency into the cosmetics available for both hunters and ghosts. When it comes to the cosmetics, you have this strange aesthetic blend of comical, chaotic pseudoscience combined with the sleek presentation of an Ubisoft game. Two ideas that you don't often expect to inhabit the same visual sphere, but somehow work. And this aesthetic isn't just confined to the cosmetics, it's present in all aspects, from the stages to the sound design, and everything in between. Every map feels like I'm inhabiting this halfway point of a Scooby-Doo cartoon and a live-action horror flick. All of the weapons are this mishmash of electronics, indoor appliances, outdoor appliances, combined with scientific technology of dubious origin and questionable safety. All the powers and particle effects have a whimsical Pixar quality juxtaposed by the chaotic energies you'd see in a Ghostbusters film. The audioscape is this mix of easily recognizable sounds from horror and science fiction. Errant, ominous whispers blown away by the barely contained grinding machinations of ramshackled machinery. To me, it feels fantastical but grounded. It's earnestly cartoonish but refined. It feels as though the developers have this almost childlike whimsy baked into their concepts, but they take the realization of it very seriously and sincerely. Initially, I had a list of criticisms I wanted to bring up, but Vaulted Sky is already hard at work adjusting, fixing, and adding things since the game's early access release. Dude, the developers are zooming through their patches. By the time I was like 80% of the way done with the video, they dropped their first major content update. New maps, weapon reworks, new props to play with, etc, etc, etc. I had this whole section of the script dedicated to all things related to game balance, but with how quickly things are changing in early access and how quickly people are adapting to the game and each other, I think we can table the discussion on game balance for now. Team-based games always require a lot of time and scrutiny at multiple levels of play before problematic game and balance designs reveal themselves. Besides the aforementioned, I don't really have a lot of criticisms at the moment. That's not to say it's completely problem-free, but nothing feels particularly egregious. There are just a couple of things I'd like to request though. I'd like to see the teeniest of additions in the tutorial for both hunters and ghosts. All I want is for the hunter tutorial to explicitly mention the existence of the salt circle at the start of the round. And all I want for the ghost tutorial is that you explicitly mention you respawn exactly where you are hovering when the midnight hunt starts. I'd also like for the tutorial to explicitly mention that if you die as a ghost during the midnight hunt, then there is no way to bring you back. I've seen too many hunters, new and somewhat experienced, die to early game aggression, not realizing the existence of the salt circle. And I've seen too many ghosts charge in at midnight only to die seconds later. I'm sure there is a tip somewhere that talks about the aforementioned points, but I think a more direct approach is required here. You'd be sparing newer players from a lot of confusion and irritation, even if this is probably going to be a mistake they'll only ever make once. But that's honestly it from what I've experienced personally. And let me be clear, I'm not withholding my criticisms because it's early access. I don't have a lot of criticisms because there isn't a lot here to criticize. This has got to be one of the smoothest early access launches I've personally experienced. I bought the game on release, installed it, played 8 hours straight, and then did it again the next day without any problems. Vaulted Sky Games takes a page from the annals of video game history and not only executes on a concept beautifully, but also layers on top of the core gameplay unexpected levels of strategic depth. You're thrust into this familiar world of science fiction horror that foregrounds one of the oldest games known to man and expands it into a physical and tactical sandbox to play in. Whenever I play this game, I get this sense that the developers wanted to take the concept of prop hunt and elevate the experience and genre as a whole. Platforming and presenting to others a message saying that, hey, this is an avenue of game direction we could take this concept in. One that has structure, strategic depth, and a slick presentation without compromising on the core aspects that makes prop hunt fun to begin with. It parallels the kind of journey other games have gone through with the source engine coded into their DNA. If you're looking for something new to try or you're a fan of the prop hunt genre, then I definitely recommend purchasing Midnight Ghost Hunt full price or on sale. From what I've experienced so far, I can't help but be excited for Midnight Ghost Hunt and Vaulted Sky Games' future. The more games out there capitalizing on fun ideas with this level of presentation, polish, and execution, the better. This video concept appeared before me in a timely manner because I admit I was a little unsure of what video I wanted to make next after Gunfire Reborn. That was until this game manifested before my eyes and, in a similar fashion to Rhythm Doctor, impressed me so much with all it had to offer that I just had to make a video. Some quick updates with me and the channel. I've been pretty preoccupied these past several weeks with all sorts of beta invites and network tests and whatnot. I played Midnight Ghost Hunt, obviously. Overwatch 2, Gundam Watch, etc, etc. I was excited for future game releases before, but now I'm positively thrilled because there's just a whole bunch of games that I can't wait to get my hands on. June is going to be a busy month for me personally, so I'm not going to be doing much in terms of videos/streams. I'll be working on scripts and do some preliminary editing here and there, but don't expect too much from me until early July at best. Be sure to check out my other socials, Twitter, Twitch, and my Patreon, and if you do visit the Patreon, pledge if you can, I'd really appreciate it. Other than that, thank you for watching. I sincerely hope you've all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!